What are our top 5 foods for long-term storage? Stay tuned. Hey, Proud and Preppers, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Kylene. And Tas Xou, this is for you. In the comment section, he asked what the top 3 to 5 calorie-dense foods that we store in our food storage are, or what we would want to store. So this was a really good question. And so Jonathan has a different opinion than I do, of course.
Of course.
And Ben and Kenny are also going to answer this question so you can see kind of the variety, because I don't think there's really one right answer here.
Now, getting this started, it's important to note that there are some other things that you definitely want to have. Your baking supplies, if you're going to have grains that you need to grind, you need to have some kind of grinder. Garden seeds are huge, and you know that we promote gardening because it provides so much stability for you. So having the ability to do that. What else?
But that's not what this video is all about.
No, it isn't.
So there's a huge amount of other things that we would talk about, but today we're gonna stick with 5. So Kenny and Ben, what are your top 5 choices?
All right, now it's our turn. I'm gonna go first. My number 1 is oats. I say that because I think they're pretty good. They're very cheap. They last a long time, and they're also very nutritious, so that makes it like an all-around good source of food storage.
Good for him, but my number 1 is either freeze-dried ice cream, freeze-dried cheesecake, or chocolate. I'm really not picky, I just need my sugar.
Okay, my number 2 is beans, and this one's one of my favorite ones because, I don't know, I really like beans. And they're also really nutritious, and they have a lot of calories, which is very great, so you don't starve.
My number 2 is berries, probably like freeze-dried berries because they have to last a long time, but they would go well with my ice cream, and also they're healthy.
All right, my number 3 is rice, and I say this because it goes really well with beans, and it also has a lot of calories, and it lasts a long time, so it's just good.
My number 3 is beans, for all the reasons he said, but probably less scientific.
Okay, my number 4 is just freeze-dried like fruits and like vegetables, just all that stuff. And I say this because a lot of people don't have like a freeze dryer, and so that's why I put it down at number 4. But I think if you do have a freeze dryer, this one can be like your number 1 because you can freeze dry basically anything, and so you can have all the foods that you're used to, even like long term. So yeah.
He has a lot of logic, and it works really well. But my number 4 is kind of logical actually too. I want some kind of like freeze-dried meat or something, preferably like chicken or beef, because protein's important. And yeah, that's all. Carry on.
All right, finally, my number 5 is wheat. And now I don't eat like a ton of bread.
He just like spoonfuls the wheat.
Yes, I just eat the wheat. I just eat the wheat like that.
That would be weird.
Yeah, I don't eat like a ton of bread. I do like bread, but like it's definitely not my number 1. I don't care for it all too much, but it would be really nice to have, so yeah.
Cool. I think my number 5 is eggs, probably, because eggs also have protein and they're delightful, and you can use them in basically anything, probably. I don't know. You can probably use them in anything. So, and you can just like freeze dry them, and when you freeze dry them, if you reconstitute them, they're like basically the same thing. So, it tastes the same. Eggs.
Yeah, and those are our number 5. Yeah!
Now that was an interesting perspective, right? I agree definitely with some of them. Jonathan, why don't you give us your top 5?
Okay, so here we go. And these aren't in any particular order, but I like all 5 of these. Wheat, obviously for cereals and breads, pancakes, all these kinds of things. Oats, a wonderful food, and you can eat these cold. If you need to, you can eat them cold. Also potatoes you can eat cold. So having potato flakes, and then beans, legumes, those are so important, not only for their nutritive value, but also for the calories. And then of course rice, I think is an exceptional one. Again, not really super high in nutrients, but all those calories are so important, and all these foods you can store for 30 years if they're packaged properly. So there you have it.
And in a cool area.
Yes.
Okay, that's his 5, and my 5's actually different. My number 1, and these are in order, my number 1 would be rolled oats. And one of those reasons is because, seriously, I have rolled oats for breakfast almost every single day. And the next one, number 2, is dry beans. And one of the things that I do with my rolled oats is I mix a little bit of bean flour in with them. And so beans have a great variety, dry beans have a great versatility where you're able to use them, whether it's ground and cooking and all that, but that's really good, and they add a lot of nutrition. Now my number 3 is actually cornmeal, because I have a gluten sensitivity, and so I can't eat wheat, and I need some of those basic grains. So corn is really good, or cornmeal is actually how I would store it. And then number 4 is freeze-dried eggs. And the reason why, now, I don't like dried eggs because they smell really bad. And this is personal preference. This doesn't mean that you can't do that. But for me, when I freeze dry the eggs, so I freeze dry them raw, right? I mix them up and freeze dry them raw. And then when I reconstitute them, I seriously can't tell the difference between fresh eggs and freeze-dried eggs. And so that's able to allow me to have both some protein and some fat. Fat is something that's really difficult to get with just some of your basic food storage. So for me, that is one of the most important things. Now, number 5 is actually freeze-dried greens. You could totally do dehydrated or dried greens, but having that mixture of things like kale and spinach and chard or beet greens, and then you freeze dry it and you crumble it all down, and so it stores just so much power-packed nutrition in a little tiny spot that you can eat anywhere. So to be healthy for me, those are my top 5 foods.
I like those.
Do you?
Yeah, I really do. That's some good stuff.
You gonna eat the eggs and the greens with me?
Sure.
John loves his bread. Like, he loves his bread, huh?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
So Tas Xou, thank you so much for asking that question. I think that's really important. So for the question of the day, what are your top foods that you would store for long-term food storage that are calorically dense? Comment below. And thanks for being part of the solution.